Have you ever asked yourself why the people who are clearly wrong for you often feel so irresistible? Why that person who brings chaos into your life, who doesn't give you the security you need, who never really chooses you, why do they feel so magnetic? Why does being with them feel like the most intense kind of intimacy you've ever experienced? It's because the wrong people often know how to feed your hunger without ever nourishing you. They give you just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to make you feel safe. And in that space between what you want and what you're getting, your brain turns that tension into obsession. See, intimacy isn't just about closeness. It's about uncertainty, desire, validation, and fear all mixed together. And the wrong people, they're masters at pulling those strings. That's why the highs feel so high, and the lows feel like heartbreak that carves your soul in half. But let's dig deeper, because the truth is, there's a reason you keep finding yourself in these situations. And it's not because you're broken. It's because your emotional wiring is reacting to things it's been trained to chase. When we understand that, we start breaking the pattern. Have you ever wondered why someone who is inconsistent can feel so addictive? Why you can know deep down that a person is wrong for you, that they don't give you what you truly need, and yet the idea of walking away feels impossible. It's because uncertainty creates one of the strongest emotional hooks in the human experience. The truth is, our minds aren't wired to crave what's easy, predictable, or constant. We think we want consistency, and logically, we do. But emotionally, our bodies are drawn to patterns of unpredictability because they light up the same circuits in the brain that keep gamblers pulling the lever at a slot machine. And when it comes to love, that is one of the most dangerous games to play. The cycle begins with that first hit of attention. Maybe it's a text after days of silence. Maybe it's an affectionate gesture after weeks of distance. Maybe it's a sudden flood of passion after you've been questioning everything. Whatever form it takes, that moment lands like fireworks in your brain. It feels electric, intoxicating, like oxygen after holding your breath underwater. And the reason it feels so good isn't because the connection is special. It's because your nervous system has been living in stress and suddenly got relief. When you live in uncertainty, every little sign of approval becomes a jackpot. It sends a surge of dopamine through your system, the same chemical that makes gambling so addictive. The brain associates unpredictability with reward, and that's why you can't stop checking your phone. Can't stop overanalyzing every word. Can't stop craving the next high. If they gave you that attention every day in a steady stream, it wouldn't feel as thrilling. That's because consistency doesn't spike dopamine, it builds trust. And trust, while beautiful, doesn't feel like a rush. It feels calm, it feels steady, but here's the problem. Calm doesn't always feel like love when you're addicted to chaos. So when the wrong person gives you crumbs of affection after starving you of it for days or weeks, it lands with 10 times the power. Your brain turns those moments into proof. See, they do care. They just needed time. If I stay a little longer, if I give a little more, maybe I can bring this side of them out permanently. And that thought is what traps you. It keeps you investing more into a relationship that's draining you because you've been conditioned to believe that the prize is just around the corner. This is why leaving these situations feels like withdrawal. It's not just emotional pain, it's chemical. You've been living on a roller coaster of intermittent rewards, and when you walk away, your brain starts screaming for the next high. That's why no contact feels unbearable at first. Your body isn't just missing the person, it's missing the unpredictability that kept your system in a heightened state. It's missing the anticipation, the hope, the tiny bursts of validation that became your emotional lifeline. And if you're not aware of what's happening, you'll mistake that craving for proof that you love them. But it's not love, it's addiction dressed up as romance. What makes this even harder is that society romanticizes this kind of intensity. We call it passion. We say things like, the best love stories are the ones you fight for. or if it's easy, it's not real. And so we grow up thinking that the presence of anxiety, uncertainty, and longing means we've found something deep. But that's a lie. True intimacy doesn't require constant tension to stay alive. It doesn't keep you guessing where you stand. The relationships that last aren't built on fireworks. They're built on fire. A steady, warm flame that burns without burning you out, but when you've been conditioned to associate drama with desire, that steady flame can feel foreign, even boring. The reason uncertainty is so powerful is that it taps into survival instincts. Our brains evolved to pay more attention to things that are scarce and unpredictable. If love feels uncertain, it becomes a resource we want to secure at all costs. So when someone gives you mixed signals, your subconscious treats it like a problem to solve. It says, if I can just figure this out, if I can earn their love, I'll feel safe. And that belief keeps you stuck in a loop of overfunction, in giving more, tolerating more, excusing more, because every tiny sign of progress feels monumental. It feels like hope, and hope is the strongest drug of all. You're not addicted to the person. You're addicted to the story you've built around what could happen if you just hold on. You imagine the version of them who finally chooses you, finally commits, finally gives you the love you deserve. And every time they give you a breadcrumb, it reinforces that dream. It whispers, see, you're close, don't give up now. But that dream isn't real. It's a mirage that keeps you crawling through the desert, thirsty and desperate, while the oasis stays forever out of reach. The most painful part of this cycle is that it makes you question yourself. When someone gives you love inconsistently, you start believing the problem is you. You think, if I were prettier, smarter, more interesting, they'd want me all the time, not just sometimes. That self-blame deepens the addiction because now the stakes aren't just about love, they're about your worth. You start working harder, bending more, sacrificing pieces of yourself just to get back to that high of feeling chosen. And in doing so, you abandon yourself. You stop noticing your own needs because you're too busy trying to meet theirs. What makes all of this even more insidious is that it feels like intimacy. It feels deep because it's intense. Your heart races, your stomach flips, your emotions swing from euphoria to despair, and you tell yourself, if I feel this much, it must be love. But real love doesn't feel like a storm, it feels like a harbor. It doesn't make you anxious, it makes you grounded. It doesn't leave you guessing, it makes you certain. But if you've never experienced that before, the calm of real love can feel unsettling compared to the chaos of what you've known. Breaking this pattern starts with awareness. You have to recognize that the intensity isn't proof of depth. It's proof of unpredictability, and unpredictability isn't romantic, it's destabilizing. It keeps you in fight or flight mode instead of letting you relax into trust. And when you're in that state, you can't show up as your best self. You can't think clearly because your nervous system is too busy scanning for danger or chasing reward. You're not building a relationship, you're surviving one. So how do you break free? You start by detaching the feeling of desire from the reality of what you're getting. You remind yourself that missing someone doesn't mean they're good for you. You allow yourself to grieve, not just the person, but the fantasy you built around them. And then you start teaching your body what calm love feels like. You start seeking people who are consistent, not because it gives you a high, but because it gives you peace. And yes, at first, it will feel strange. Your brain will crave the drama because drama feels alive. But aliveness isn't love, it's adrenaline, and you deserve more than adrenaline. You deserve affection without anxiety, passion without pain, intimacy without instability. When you finally experience that, you'll look back and wonder why you ever thought the roller coaster was worth the ride. Because real love isn't about holding your breath, waiting for the next high. It's about exhaling. It's about knowing you don't have to earn your place in someone's life. It's about feeling safe enough to be yourself every day without fear that the person you love will vanish or withdraw. That is the kind of intimacy that lasts. And the sooner you stop chasing chaos, the sooner you can create the love you've always deserved. Have you ever stopped to think about why certain people have such a powerful hold on you, even when deep down you know they're not showing up fully? Why does the attention they give, even if it's rare and inconsistent, feel so significant? It's because validation feels like love, especially when you're starved of it. And that illusion can keep you chasing someone who is not only wrong for you, but also incapable of giving you what you truly deserve. When someone validates you, it speaks to one of the most primal human needs, the need to feel seen, wanted, chosen. We're wired for connection. We're wired to look for signs that we matter to someone. And when a person gives you just enough approval, even in small doses, it can feel like proof that you're special to them. That feeling is intoxicating because it temporarily silences every fear that whispers you're not enough. For a moment, you feel worthy. For a moment, the doubt disappears, and that moment becomes addictive because it gives you a high you want to keep feeling again and again. The danger comes when you mistake that high for love. Love and validation are not the same thing, but when someone sprinkles validation in small, inconsistent doses, it tricks your mind. It creates a cycle where you crave more because what they give never fully satisfies you. You feel like you're drinking from a glass with holes in the bottom. No matter how much you get, it's never enough. So you chase harder, you text more, you show up more, you compromise more, all in hopes of getting that next hit of reassurance. You start thinking, if I can just make them want me more, if I can just be good enough, then maybe they'll finally see my worth. And without realizing it, you hand over your power. The sad truth is that someone who only gives you validation in fragments isn't truly invested in building something real with you. If they were, you wouldn't be questioning where you stand. You wouldn't be analyzing their every word, their every move, trying to decode the hidden meaning. Real love doesn't need decoding because it speaks clearly. When someone genuinely loves you, their words match their actions. They show up consistently. You never have to beg for clarity because they make their intentions known. But when validation becomes the currency in your relationship, you start living for scraps instead of expecting the feast you deserve. Why do we fall into this trap? Often, it's because validation hits an old wound. Maybe you grew up craving approval from a parent who was emotionally distant or inconsistent. Maybe you had relationships where love always felt conditional, where you had to earn it by being perfect, agreeable, or endlessly giving. When that's your history, validation becomes more than just a compliment. It becomes oxygen. You feel like you need it to breathe because somewhere deep down, you've linked being validated with being safe, with being loved, with being enough. So when someone dangles that approval in front of you, even if it's fleeting, it awakens that old craving and suddenly you're hooked. And here's the irony, the very thing you're chasing, validation, should never have to be earned in a healthy relationship. You should never feel like you have to fight for someone to see your value. But when you're used to associating love with effort, you start believing that the harder you work, the more you'll be loved. You start thinking, if I just do a little more, maybe then they'll choose me. And that belief keeps you stuck in relationships where you give endlessly and receive minimally, because the small bursts of validation feel like a reward for your sacrifice. It feels like proof that you're close to winning the game. But love isn't a game, and your worth isn't a prize someone hands out when you've performed well enough. What makes this cycle even more dangerous is that validation feels like progress. If someone ignores you for days and then suddenly sends a sweet message, you take it as a sign things are getting better. You think, see, they do care, they're just busy, maybe I was overreacting. And just like that, you talk yourself out of your needs. You minimize your feelings because you don't want to lose the little you're getting. But every time you do that, you teach yourself that your needs don't matter, that asking for more is too much, that you should be grateful for whatever crumbs fall your way. And over time, that erodes your self-esteem. You stop feeling like a partner in the relationship and start feeling like an applicant trying to prove why you deserve the job. This is why so many people confuse validation with love. Because love in its purest form feels calm, steady, secure, and for some people that feels unfamiliar. If your past taught you that love is something you have to earn, then a relationship where you don't have to fight for attention might feel strange, even boring. You might mistake stability for a lack of passion because you've been conditioned to equate intensity with affection. But intensity fueled by inconsistency isn't passion, it's pain dressed up as excitement. The truth is, validation is a temporary high. It's like sugar. It gives you a quick rush, but it doesn't nourish you. And when the rush fades, you're left craving more, even hungrier than before. Love, on the other hand, is nourishment. It doesn't leave you starving between meals. It fills you up consistently, so you never have to wonder where your next dose of affection is coming from. When someone truly loves you, they don't make you guess. They don't disappear for days, and then reappear with just enough sweetness to keep you hooked. They don't leave you living in a constant state of uncertainty, wondering what you did wrong or what you need to do next to stay in their good graces. If you've been caught in this cycle, know this: it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. We all crave validation. We all want to feel wanted. But the key is to recognize when that craving is being exploited, when it's keeping you in a relationship that's draining your soul. And the way out begins with giving yourself what you've been seeking from others. It starts with validating yourself so deeply that someone else's approval feels nice but never necessary. Because when you reach that place, you stop settling for people who only show up halfway. You stop mistaking breadcrumbs for a banquet. You start realizing that the love you want isn't something you have to earn. It's something you build with someone who shows up for you fully, not just when it's convenient. Imagine what it would feel like to be with someone who doesn't make you wonder if you matter. Imagine waking up every day knowing exactly where you stand, never having to perform or prove yourself just to keep their attention. That's what real love feels like. It feels safe. It feels certain. It feels like home. And the only way to find that is to stop chasing the thrill of temporary validation and start valuing the calm of consistency. Because the person who truly loves you won't make you beg for reassurance. They'll make sure you never have to. The next time you find yourself holding on to someone because they make you feel special in rare, fleeting moments, ask yourself, is this love or is this validation? And if it's the latter, ask yourself why you're settling for something so small when what you deserve is so much greater. Your worth isn't defined by how hard you fight to keep someone. It's defined by how willing you are to walk away from anyone who makes you feel like you have to. That spark you feel when you meet someone, the rush that makes your heart race, that magnetic pull that feels undeniable, it's powerful, isn't it? It's the thing we all dream about, the feeling we chase, the chemistry that makes everything feel alive. And when it happens, it's almost impossible to believe it could be wrong for you. How could something that feels this good, this natural, be anything other than the sign of something real? That's the trap. Because chemistry, as intoxicating as it is not the same as compatibility. And when we don't understand the difference, we end up confusing a strong pull with a strong foundation. Chemistry is your body saying, this feels familiar, this feels exciting, this feels like home. But familiarity isn't always healthy. In fact, the people we feel the most intense chemistry with often remind our subconscious of patterns from our past, patterns we haven't healed yet. So when someone triggers those old emotions, the rush feels powerful not because they're our soulmate, but because they're activating a story we've been carrying for years. A story that says love is something we have to earn, that we have to chase, that we have to fight for. That's why the wrong people can feel so right. They awaken that old narrative and our brain mistakes it for destiny. Think about it. If you grew up in a home where love felt inconsistent, where sometimes you got attention and sometimes you didn't, you learned to associate love with uncertainty, you learned to keep proving yourself to feel secure. So now, as an adult, when someone shows up and gives you mixed signals, your nervous system recognizes that pattern. It says, "Oh, I know this. This feels like home." And even though home wasn't always safe, it was familiar. And the human brain finds comfort in what it knows, even if what it knows hurts. That's why chemistry can be dangerous. It's not always a sign that something is right. It's often a sign that something is unresolved. We don't talk about this enough because we've romanticized the spark. Movies, songs, stories, they've all told us that the intensity we feel in the beginning is proof that someone is the one. We've been sold this idea that true love should sweep us off our feet, make us dizzy, make us feel like we can't live without them, and sure, that sounds beautiful, but it's also a breeding ground for heartbreak. Because real love isn't about losing yourself, it's about finding someone who makes you feel more like yourself than ever. Real love doesn't destabilize you, it grounds you. But when we're addicted to the drama of intense chemistry, stability can feel boring. Consistency can feel like a lack of passion. And so, we chase the high instead of choosing the healthy. The high of chemistry is real. It's driven by powerful chemicals. Dopamine, oxytocin, adrenaline, that flood your system when you're around someone who excites you. It's nature's way of pulling people together, but just because something is biologically intense doesn't mean it's emotionally sustainable. That surge of dopamine doesn't tell you whether someone shares your values, your goals, your vision for life. It doesn't tell you if they're capable of showing up day after day with loyalty and care. It just tells you that in this moment, your body wants more of them. And if you build a relationship on that alone, you end up ignoring all the red flags waving in your face. That's what makes chemistry such a tricky illusion. It convinces you to overlook what really matters. You tell yourself, but we just have this connection, this spark, this thing I've never felt before. And because that feeling is rare, you put it on a pedestal. You convince yourself it must mean something profound. But what if it doesn't? What if it just means that this person triggers your unhealed wounds in a way that feels exciting? What if that pull you're feeling isn't the universe telling you this is fate, but your nervous system saying, this chaos feels like home? That's not love, that's trauma chemistry, and until you heal it, you'll keep mistaking it for passion. So, how do you tell the difference? Look at what happens after the spark fades, because it will. Chemistry is a great starter, but it's a terrible foundation. What happens when the adrenaline wears off? What happens when the novelty fades? Do you still feel safe? Do you still feel respected? Do your needs still matter? Or do you find yourself anxiously waiting for their next text, their next breadcrumb, their next sign of interest? If the connection only feels alive when there's drama, tension, or uncertainty, that's not chemistry worth keeping. That's chaos disguised as love. The truth is, compatibility is where real love lives. Compatibility is boring to your nervous system if you've been trained to seek chaos, but it's everything your heart actually needs. It's the quiet assurance that this person's actions match their words. It's the comfort of knowing you can trust them to be who they say they are. It's not fireworks that burn out. It's a steady flame that warms you every day. And yes, that flame may not feel as thrilling as the explosion of instant chemistry, but it will sustain you in a way fireworks never could. But here's the challenge: when you're used to intensity, calm feels wrong. You meet someone kind, consistent, grounded, and you think, I'm just not feeling it. You think you need more spark, more tension, more mystery. And so you walk away from the very thing that could give you the love you've been craving all along, because your body isn't used to peace, it's used to adrenaline. And until you retrain your nervous system to see stability as exciting, you'll keep sabotaging real love in favor of the roller coaster. Retraining yourself starts with awareness. Start asking, what does real attraction mean to me? Is it the rush of anxiety when someone doesn't call, or is it the deep sense of safety when someone always does? Is it the high of being chosen after they've pulled away, or is it the quiet joy of being chosen every day without question? When you start defining attraction through the lens of what truly nourishes you, not what triggers you, you begin to see chemistry for what it is, a bonus, not a blueprint. It doesn't mean chemistry is bad. It's wonderful to feel that spark, but it can't be the only thing. If you choose partners based on chemistry alone, you'll keep ending up in relationships that start like a dream and end like a nightmare. You'll keep falling for people who light up your body but drain your soul. And the worst part is, you'll keep thinking something's wrong with you, when the truth is, you've just been following the wrong compass. Real love doesn't feel like an addiction. It doesn't feel like you're always chasing a high. It feels steady. It feels safe. It feels like you can finally exhale. That's the kind of love that lasts. Not the one that makes you dizzy, but the one that makes you whole. So the next time you feel that spark, that overwhelming pull, pause. Ask yourself, is this connection built on shared values, trust, and consistency? Or is it built on the thrill of unpredictability? Because one of those will grow stronger over time, and the other will burn out and leave you empty. And if you're brave enough to choose compatibility over chemistry, you'll discover a truth that changes everything. That the calm love you once called boring is actually the deepest passion of all. Because nothing is sexier than someone who shows up for you every single day, without games, without drama, without making you question your worth. That's the kind of love that doesn't just feel good in the beginning, it feels good for a lifetime. Have you ever wondered why, when someone gives you the smallest gesture of affection, it can feel enormous? Why a simple good morning text from the wrong person can make your entire day feel brighter, even when you know they're not giving you much else? Why a single night of closeness feels like proof of something deep, even if they disappear afterward? It's because when you've been living in emotional scarcity, even crumbs feel like a feast, and that scarcity doesn't start with that person. It usually starts long before. When we talk about scarcity, we often think about money, resources, or time. But emotional scarcity is just as real, and maybe even more powerful, because it shapes the way you love. If you've gone through life without feeling fully seen, fully chosen, or fully safe in love, your heart learns to survive on less. It learns to take the smallest signs of attention and amplify them into something massive. That's why when the wrong person gives you a little bit of love, it feels like everything. Your heart clings to it not because it's enough, but because it's rare, and what's rare feels valuable, even when it shouldn't. The dangerous thing about scarcity is that it tricks your brain. When something is scarce, we don't evaluate its quality. We just chase it because it's hard to get. We convince ourselves that if it's rare, it must be precious. And so, when someone who's inconsistent gives us affection, we treat it like treasure. We stop asking, is this love healthy? Is this good for me? And start asking, how do I keep it? How do I make sure they don't take it away? And in that shift, we lose ourselves. Think about how this plays out. You meet someone who isn't fully available. Maybe they're emotionally distant. Maybe they're hot and cold. Maybe they're always too busy. Deep down, you know they're not giving you what you want, but every now and then, they do something sweet. They send a thoughtful message, they have a deep conversation with you, they share something vulnerable, and that moment feels magical. It feels like a glimpse into the person you believe they could be. And because you've been starved for that level of connection, your heart explodes with hope. You tell yourself, see, this is real, this is proof they care. If I just hold on, if I just keep loving them, maybe this side of them will become the norm. But it doesn't. Those moments stay rare, and instead of realizing that scarcity isn't a sign of value, you double down. You work harder, you give more. You pour everything you have into proving your worth because you think, if I can love them enough, if I can show them how amazing I am, maybe they'll give me more. But the truth is, real love doesn't require you to prove yourself. Real love doesn't thrive on scarcity. It thrives on abundance. It grows when two people show up fully, not when one person clings desperately to whatever scraps the other person is willing to give. So why do we settle for crumbs? Why do we let emotional scarcity dictate our choices? Often, it's because somewhere along the way we internalized the belief that we don't deserve more. Maybe we learned that love was conditional, that we had to earn it by being perfect, pleasing, accommodating. Maybe we grew up in an environment where affection was unpredictable, where validation came in bursts instead of steady streams. When that's your history, scarcity feels normal, and when something feels normal, it feels safe, even if it's slowly breaking your heart. Here's the thing about scarcity, it makes you grateful for things you should already have. In a healthy relationship, respect, affection, and effort aren't rewards. They're the baseline. But when you've been deprived of those things, you start treating them like luxuries. You start thinking you're lucky to get the bare minimum, instead of realizing you deserve so much more. And the people who only give you the bare minimum, they benefit from that mindset. They keep you hooked by giving you just enough to keep you hoping, without ever committing to giving you the love you truly need. That's the trap of emotional scarcity. It keeps you in survival mode. You're so busy trying to hold on to the little you're getting that you don't notice how empty you feel most of the time. You tell yourself stories to make sense of it. You say things like, they're just stressed, they've been hurt before, they need time, and maybe some of that is true. But even if it is, it doesn't change the reality. You're starving, and the longer you stay starving, the more you start confusing hunger for love. Love isn't supposed to feel like hunger. It's not supposed to feel like waiting for someone to finally see you, finally choose you, finally give you what you've been giving them all along. Love is supposed to feel abundant. It's supposed to feel like there's enough affection, enough reassurance, enough presence. Not because the other person is perfect, but because they show up, because they care, because they want to meet your needs, not leave you guessing. Breaking free from scarcity starts with believing you deserve abundance. And that's hard when you've spent years, or maybe your whole life, settling for less. It's hard when your reference point for love has always been longing, but you have to teach your heart that there's more out there than what it's known. You have to stop romanticizing struggle and start romanticizing peace, because peace is where real intimacy grows. It's where trust is built. It's where love becomes something that doesn't just thrill you in fleeting moments, but nourishes you every day. The first step is to notice when scarcity is shaping your choices. Ask yourself, if this person gave me nothing tomorrow, no texts, no affection, no sweet moments, would this relationship still feel good to me? If the answer is no, then you're not in a relationship. You're in an emotional drought, praying for rain, and you deserve more than rain. You deserve a river. You deserve love that flows so steadily you never have to beg for a drop. The second step is to become your own source of abundance, because here's the truth: no one else can fill the void if you believe you're not enough. No one else can make you feel worthy if you've decided you're unworthy. And as long as you're looking to someone else to prove your value, you'll keep falling for people who withhold it, because they reinforce the story you already believe. So change the story. Tell yourself, I am enough even when no one is validating me. I am enough even when someone walks away. I am enough even when love isn't present in the way I want it to be. When you believe that, you stop clinging to crumbs because you know you can bake your own bread. You know you don't need anyone else to feed you. When you reach that place, everything changes. Suddenly, what once felt magnetic starts to feel heavy. The people who used to keep you hooked with small gestures lose their power because you're no longer starving. You're full, and when you're full, you stop chasing scarcity and start demanding abundance. You stop settling for love that leaves you empty and start choosing love that makes you whole. Imagine a love like that. A love where you never have to wonder if you matter. A love where effort isn't occasional, it's consistent. A love where you're not holding your breath, waiting for the next drop of affection. You're breathing freely because you know the well will never run dry. That love exists, but you'll never find it if you keep confusing scarcity with value. You'll never find it if you keep letting the wrong people convince you that crumbs are enough. You deserve more than enough. You deserve a love that doesn't make you beg, a love that doesn't make you question, a love that doesn't make you feel like your worth depends on what you can give. You deserve a love that meets you where you are and walks with you every step of the way. And the moment you decide to stop settling for scarcity, you open the door to that kind of love. So the next time someone gives you a little and you feel that rush, pause, ask yourself, do I feel full in this relationship, or am I just grateful for a crumb because I've been starving? If the answer is the latter, it's time to walk away, because the love you want, the love you deserve, isn't found in scarcity. It's found in abundance, and that abundance starts with you. The reason intimacy feels so good with the wrong people isn't because they're magical. It's because they awaken parts of you that crave security but mistake chaos for love. You deserve more than temporary highs followed by crushing lows. You deserve a love that doesn't just make your heart race, it makes your soul feel safe. So the next time you feel that intoxicating pull, ask yourself, am I drawn to this person because they're right for me, or because they're recreating a pattern I've never broken? That question alone could change your life.